The affordability crisis. By way of introducing Saru Jayaraman, let's unpack that a little bit, and I'm going to take an extra minute to do that. In his remarkable book, Goliath's Curse, the researcher Luke Kent at Cambridge University's Center for Existential Risk looks at the rise and collapse of over 400 societies over the past 5,000 years. At the center of every collapse are two conditions: extreme inequality caused by wealth extraction by the 1%, and status competition among the elites. It's Goliath's curse. As inequality spikes, these increasingly hollowed out societies become acutely vulnerable to shocks and collapse. Fast forward to peak inequality in 2026 here in the US. The wealth pump has been cranking at warp speed to extract the biggest wealth transfer in history from bottom to top. The ultra-rich have amassed more wealth than the robber barons of the 19th century. The world's 12 richest billionaires have more wealth than the poorest half of humanity. The top 1% now control $58 trillion in assets, more than the combined GDPs of the US and China. That's more than enough to eliminate global poverty 22 times over. Since the first Trump tax cuts in 2017, the number of US billionaires has jumped roughly 50% to over 900, comprising 1/3 of the now new global record of 3,000 billionaires globally. They could fit inside a large ballroom. Hint. In 2024, just 100 billionaire families poured $2 billion into US federal elections. That's about a 160-fold increase since the 2010 Citizens United Supreme travesty. A billionaire is 4,000 times more likely to run for office than a regular citizen. Few policies pass that they don't want. Meanwhile, as Matt Stoller points out, they've defunded the police. That is, the white-collar police for the 1% crime. Instead, we get the new ice age, exponentially escalating blue-collar policing on working people, immigrants, and the poor. As the world churns, Trumpelstiltskin rages into the abyss, grifting all the way. Off-planet Elon, End Times Teal, and the funding fathers build their luxury survivalist bunkers. That's literally their plan B, and the B is for billionaire. Meanwhile, on the other side of the ledger, there's a permanent affordability collapse. Labor's share of income is the lowest since the Great Depression. While basic living costs balloon, major cuts are shredding the social safety net and workers' rights, hurling people into economic freefall. Roughly half of Americans can't afford a $1,000 emergency. Poverty is now the fourth leading cause of death in the United States. At the same time that wealth inequality is sharply racialized and gendered, ironically, millions more white people fall under the official poverty level than any other single racial or ethnic group. The most unequal countries are 7 times more likely to experience democratic backsliding or autocracy. The affordability crisis is actually a billionaire crisis, which in turn is a democracy crisis. But when the mass immiseration becomes this extreme, people fight back. There's some kind of weird karmic justice that it took a sex trafficking, pedophilic, money laundering, influence peddling, international man of mystery to pull back the curtain on the 1% class war. People are realizing the reason they're overworked, sicker, poorer, and chronically insecure is the giant sucking sound of the Epstein class. This is the terrain where Saru Jayaraman takes her stand. She's the founder and president of One Fair Wage, which organizes restaurant workers across the country to raise wages and end all sub-minimum wages nationwide. Saru is director of the Food Labor Research Center at UC Berkeley. She's authored several books, including One Fair Wage, Ending Sub-Minimum Pay in America. She's appeared on MS Now, HBO, PBS, CBS, CNN, and at the Golden Globes. She's received numerous awards, including CNN's Top 10 Visionary Women and an Obama White House Champion of Change, as well as a James Beard Foundation Leadership Award. She's now working with over 100 labor and community organizations to launch Living Wage for All to address the twin affordability and democracy crises. Please join me in welcoming back a fiery personification of Goliath's curse, Saru.
Hello, how is everybody doing? Thank you, Kenny. That was definitely the best introduction I have ever received. My name is Saru, as you heard. This is my third time keynoting here at Bioneers, and when I've come in the past, I have shared that I have been organizing for 25 years and represent an industry, the restaurant industry, which is 13.6 million people in the United States who work in the lowest wage jobs in the United States. And I shared that there is a sub-minimum wage for tipped workers that is still $2.13 an hour in 2026, and that the largest employer of women and people of color and youth and immigrants and pretty much all of us gets to pay $2.13 an hour. And I shared in these previous times that I've spoken over and over again, I've shared that when so much of America, this is 1 in 7, my industry is 1 in 7 workers in America, but when half of America cannot afford to feed themselves, their families, to survive, they also cannot engage politically. And for a conference focused on sustainability and the climate crisis, there is no way that working people in the United States, I've been saying this for a long time, will be able to engage on those issues which, yes, do matter to them, as long as they are paid the wages they are paid, as long as they're working 3 jobs instead of 1, and as long as they do not see any reason to vote, because the people in power, the people who run, all represent the antithesis of everything they need and stand for. So I've been sharing this and facing a lot of pushback. In 2024, when we were trying to raise money to put wage increases on the ballot in key states like Arizona and Michigan, donors told me, "That's cute. You're trying to raise wages. We're trying to save democracy." And I had a really hard time trying to explain to people that raising wages is saving democracy. It is the same thing, because there is no world, again, in which democracy can function with these incredibly high levels of inequality. And I'm sad to say that despite all these repeated warnings and coming to Bioneers and speaking and talking and organizing, we ended up in the disaster we are in precisely for the reasons I kept saying where a disaster was looming. And the best example of this was that the orange man ran on and delivered on no tax on tips. And our folks, 14 million restaurant workers, said, "We're not idiots. We know he's pandering. Look, 2/3 of tipped workers don't even earn enough to pay federal income tax. But at least he thinks we're important enough to pander to. The other side doesn't even think we're important enough to include every time the minimum wage goes up." And when this happened, I reached out to Kamala directly. I said, "Please, pander. He's pandering. At least pander. Say you're going to raise the wage. Say you're going to include them." No. No. Over and over again, no. So I'm here with a different message today. I'm not going to say the same things I said in the past. We're in a different moment now because we haven't heeded the warnings that working people have been trying to tell us for so long. We're in a moment when working people either stayed home or went the other way because we didn't listen. We didn't pay attention. We did not say your lives matter. So, we, last year, came together, many of us, hundreds of us, to create something new, a living wage for all. a minimum wage closer to the cost of living, which 15 is not, and ending all sub-minimum wages for tipped workers, for workers with disabilities, for youth, even for incarcerated workers who, it's another legacy of slavery. Because something no tax on tips hopefully showed everybody is that you continue to leave people out at your peril. When you leave huge groups of people out, guess what? They are then susceptible to co-optation by the right. And this is the result. So last year in April, we were struck by a series of USA Today articles that came out documenting a rumor video that the right had been circulating among MAGA voters saying that Donald Trump had already raised the federal minimum wage to $25 an hour. 3 USA Today articles because the videos were so popular and gained so much attention among right-wing voters. Now, we all know it's a lie, and they lie all day, no big deal. That's not the news here. The news here is that they didn't say Donald Trump raised the wage to 15 or 17 or 20. They said he raised it to $25 an hour, which is the least you need to live anywhere in the United States of America right now. The MIT living wage calculator says the cheapest county in the US is McLennan County, Texas, and you need 25 to survive. So they picked the very number that affects all of us, including MAGA voters, and it was insanely popular. And then more recently, here is a tweet by a Trump family friend. Prediction: President Trump raises the minimum wage and wins the midterms. Such an obvious power move to fix affordability. Can't imagine real Donald Trump and J.D. Vance don't take it. When I saw these articles, I said, we have a 5-alarm fire. The right is talking about 25 and agitating their base about 25, and the left is stuck on 17, some places 15. And I gotta tell you, this is why people hate us. People hate us because they see us negotiating against ourselves before we even get to the room. They see us arguing for half a loaf. Even as I'm started talking, I'm sure there are people in the room who some part of their brain is saying, what about small business? What about, will the economy survive? Can we manage 25? And I'm not blaming you. That is what you have been fed your entire lives. But we negotiate against ourselves before we even tell working people, we are fighting for you. We are fighting for the full loaf, not half a loaf. We know what it takes, and it's no less than 25. So when we saw this, we organized an emergency gathering in LA in June of last year with 140 labor and community leaders from 15 states, basically the minimum wage field, to say it is time for a new fight for 15, it is time for living wage for all, a floor of 25, let higher cost regions go to 30 and higher. And so since the convening, we have launched campaigns, bills and ballot measures in dozens of states for 25 all-inclusive and $30. Several counties, including this county here, we just launched $30 here in Alameda County. $30 has launched in New York. $30 has launched in LA. 25 is on the ballot in Washington, D.C. this November. It's moving in Michigan and Pennsylvania and Colorado and Maryland and federally, because we have to give people some sense of hope that a different future is on the horizon, one in which they can survive and, yes, maybe thrive. So we polled, 25, so high. That's our side, oh, 25, 30, too high. We polled across red, blue, and purple districts, overwhelmingly popular. And I gotta tell you, when we fed them the opposition messaging, this is gonna make prices go up, these jobs are gonna be lost, small businesses, support went up. People are so angry right now. If you tell them we can't raise the wage, prices will go up, they say, what are you talking about? Prices have already gone up. The only price that hasn't gone up is the price of human beings. We tested 30 across the higher cost regions, 3-1. And yes, here in Alameda County, I wanted to show you, this is right where we're sitting. 71% support for $30 an hour. And you would expect higher among Democrats, higher among women, but look at seniors. Seniors, 77% support for a $30 minimum wage across even Trump areas of Alameda County. Why? I have heard from so many older people. I am so sad to say that the young people in my life will never leave the house because they can never afford to. And that's a funny thing and a heartbreaking thing, because the California Budget Office just reported recently that a new trend we're seeing among minimum wage workers is that young people are deciding never to have children because they can't afford to. They can't imagine a life where they could actually afford their own place and have their own children. How heartbreaking is it that we are denying the next generation the ability to have kids? This is the problem. There's so much talk about affordability, but most of it is bring costs down. From Trump's mouth and even from Zoran Mamdani. Freeze the rent, affordable childcare, affordable healthcare. Nobody is saying those things aren't essential, critical, important, and there is no world in which we achieve affordability by simply bringing costs down. Look at inflation over the last 75 years. It has never come down. It has never gone backwards. The only way to make life more affordable for half of working Americans, I want to tell you something. When I was part of the Fight for 15 over a decade ago, we were talking about at most a quarter of the population who would get a raise. At most. Do you know that now half of Americans earn less than $25 an hour? Half of America earns less than what it costs to live in the cheapest place in the United States of America. So half of America thinks maybe things are okay, and half of America has been in a 5-alarm fire for a very long time. And if you look at the last 6 years in particular since the pandemic, it is double or triple the level of inflation of the last 75 years. So this is not the stagflation of the 70s. This is not anything we have ever experienced as a country. This is unprecedented. Unprecedented affordability crisis means an unprecedented democracy crisis, means unprecedented crisis, period. So, thank you. I know there's a lot to be unhappy about. I know there's a lot to cry about. There's a lot to be angry about. There's a lot to defend. And yet, if all we do is defense, we will lose. We have to have a proactive vision that is bold, that shows people we are fighting. And it has to be about the very thing they keep telling us is their top concern over and over and over again, which is the cost of living. You know, I told some of you in the last Bioneers that me and Linda Sarsour have been putting together this bigger initiative called the Next 250. It is moving. We have hundreds of organizations involved who've come together and put together a declaration of interdependence that Angel Glover-Blackwell wrote. We have been holding town halls across the country, and there is a mass mobilization coming up in Washington, D.C. on June 27th. And it is about a proactive, bold vision for the future, because if all we do is defense, we will lose. I hope you will join us. That's next250.us. It's for the 250th anniversary of the United States and the Declaration of Independence. But I have to tell you, in terms of democracy, I have been hearing so often from our members across the country, if I ask them, come to Saturday's rally, No Kings, help us save democracy, they'll say, save democracy? I earn $3, I work 3 jobs. What has democracy done for me lately? And I've heard that so often. I have a book coming out in September called What Has Democracy Done for Me Lately? Because it is incumbent on everybody in this room to prove that democracy can deliver on the very things they keep telling us are their top priorities, the cost of living, if we want them to believe that democracy is worth saving. And I have asked workers, what would you do? What would you do if you actually had the capacity to engage in the democratic process? If you had one job instead of three? If you could engage politically, what would you work on? Do you know what they tell me time and time again? They say the climate crisis. Working people are more impacted than anybody in this room. Tipped workers don't get tips if people don't come because there's unusual weather, blizzard, or heat. Working people live in the communities that are most impacted by environmental crisis. So of course they care, but they do not have the capacity, again, nor do they see people in power doing or speaking to anything that represents them or resonates with them or frankly addresses the top need they have, which is the cost of living. So, we are asking you to please join us. I am speaking again on this issue and these campaigns and ways to get involved on Saturday with Angela Glover-Blackwell at the Brower Center. Raj Patel is moderating. Thank you, Raj. Here in the room, I have some amazing One Fair Wage people, Living Wage for All people with signs and shirts, and they have flyers for how you can get involved with the Living Wage for All campaign. I'm going to close by saying, and oh, by the way, if you don't interact with them, you can get in touch at info@onefairwage.org. But here's the bottom line. As sad as this moment is, there is actually an opportunity here. As Kenny said, there is a moment of opportunity where the pendulum could swing in the exact opposite direction. It could swing towards a world, yes, it is totally possible. It could swing towards a world where people actually could work one job instead of three, where people could thrive instead of survive, where they would have time with their kids, and yes, they would have time to engage on the issue they said they would engage on if they had capacity, which is the climate crisis. I do believe we can achieve that because what's so hopeful to me is that when I travel the country, I'm in Michigan or Pennsylvania or even the South, the one thing everybody across right and left keeps talking about is the same thing, the cost of living. And living wages is so popular, not just in Alameda County, not just here, but in Mississippi, in Michigan, in every red, blue, and purple district. The one thing I find working people across the political spectrum can agree on is if you work, you deserve to earn enough to feed your family, to have a roof over your head, maybe even to take a vacation. What a concept. But I really want to disabuse us and ask you to join me in stopping this notion of saving democracy. It's not working. It didn't work in 2024. The messages that we were told, I tried to talk to Kamala, the messages we were told, you're wrong. The economy is working. You're wrong. There's so much that we've done. We're just not messaging it right. No. You know what the best message is for working people? Delivering on the things that make them, allow them to survive and thrive and live. So that is why I feel such deep urgency to work with you to deliver on wage increases that will put more money in people's pockets, that will give people a sense of hope. And yes, instead of saving anything, because whatever it is we're saving is not working, has not worked for a very long time for half of the country, instead of doing that together, building a different future in which all of us can thrive. Thank you.